Hey folks, Jim Dunaway from the Next Round. It's time to look back and enjoy a week of Southeastern Conference football as we talk about what we saw in the field. And as always, we're excited to be partnered with our friends at Cowin Equipment. And they'd like to partner up with your company for all your heavy equipment needs. Visit everyone over at Cowin on their website at cowin.com to find out more about how you can save with your heavy equipment solution, from rental and new equipment sales to superior service and parts. It's all right there with our friends at Cowin Equipment. Visit cowin.com. That's cowin.com. Now let's check out the action. When you watch Alabama, up until 14 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the game, inconsistent's the best way to describe them. They had great moments, and then they had some monumental breakdowns. But then the final 14 minutes and 30 seconds is why the AP voters said, you know what? We're going to move Alabama up to number 3 in the AP poll.
It's got to be maddening, though, if you're an Alabama fan, because, again, you go back to A&M, and they weren't focused in that game, and they get beat, and then they were super focused against Mississippi State. They win the game by 40. They weren't really focused for 60 minutes, obviously, against Tennessee. I think it does start with the secondary. And Bryce Young is camouflaging what is right now kind of a patchwork offensive line.
Boy, it is interesting you brought that up. And I want to ask this question. It feels like Alabama quarterbacks in the past have in a lot of ways succeeded because of the talent around them. That Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, A.J. McCarron, Jake Coker, talented guys, some more talented than others, but they've always had an abundance of talent around them. And this person said, for the first time, I feel like in watching Bryce Young, he's a guy that is having to carry it and make everybody around him better. And I had not stopped to think about it, but watching that game Saturday night, I kind of agree with what you just said, Lance. I think he's camouflaging a lot of issues.
Well, and I think, Dunaway, he's getting more comfortable running the football, which is going to be dangerous to opponents down the road. As long as he can stay healthy, I mean, his moves are Kyler Murray-like. I don't think he's got that kind of
so
speed.
Elusive.
But elusive, ability to stop on a dime. I mean, that was a huge difference. His 10 carries, 42 yards, a couple of touchdowns, getting Alabama out of bad situations and actually making big-time plays.
He's holding the ball too long is what one guy tweeted back at me. Just a variety of he's not throwing receivers open. He's waiting until they're wide open to throw it. I mean, the complaints that came in about Bryce, and my mind was blown. It was like we were watching two totally different games. Here's Nick Saban on Bryce Young's ability to scramble and what that has meant for this offense.
He's done a really good job of scrambling. He's really deceptively quick and has a really good burst and moves around, very effectively in the pocket. So he's not easy to sack. So that's been very beneficial to us. I would actually hope that he doesn't have to do it, that we can protect well enough and get people open well enough that we can throw it and catch it, and he wouldn't have to do that. But I think that anytime a quarterback does that, it does affect the defense, and I think it's something that's been very effective for us the last couple games.
He put more lingerie on the deck in Tuscaloosa than Joey Freshwater did Saturday night.
You've been holding that line since Saturday night.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, the guy made some moves in the open field. The ability to stop and let the guy slide right past him, and then carry it on in the end zone. Unbelievable start and stop. I tweeted this during the game. Hats off to the Tennessee training staff. They're unable to take a play off when Tennessee's defense on the field. Do you think some of that's intentional?
I think it's really hard right now. Like, it's so murky for announcers, for fans, because obviously you hear the fans booing, and you kind of get it, but it's also just kind of a bad look to boo a guy when he's hurt, because then obviously what if he actually is hurt? And what are you supposed to do as the ruling body? How do you enforce if someone's actually hurt or not? It's such a difficult situation, especially, let's be honest, in this day and age of player safety and concussions and all this different stuff, and also just the climate in general of culture. How do you tell a guy not to lay on the field? So I don't know what they're going to do about it. There's certainly I made the joke several times, to which my producer told me that only probably half of our listeners got it, that I thought that they must have had Mr. Miyagi in the tent, because there were a lot of guys that were really in some serious pain, and all of a sudden Mr. Miyagi rubbed those hands together And then that 2 plays later, they were right back in looking very spry. So I don't know if they just brought him on full time or what, but there was a lot of that going on.
I think the self-scouting that will go on in Tuscaloosa this week is very beneficial to this team. I think they will not dumb it down a little bit defensively, but I think with some time this week to sort of reevaluate what they're doing defensively, they'll trim out the fat and maybe make this a little simpler for everyone down the stretch.
Well, the good news is coming out of a bye, you've got LSU. And I don't know what you guys thought about LSU's performance this past weekend. I mean,
pretty bad.
They go from being so motivated and playing so well against Florida, and I know they jumped out 7-0, but they were just flat.
Well, I told Brown in our Saturday breakout that the performance they gave against Florida, even though we as the public didn't know that Ed Orgeron was fired until Sunday, it made me believe that on Saturday there was a lot of belief in that locker room going into the Florida game that was it for Ed O.
Win one for Coach O.
There was
win
one for Coach O.
That was not Saturday.
And you can't go back to that tank a lot. And they look like they were running on fumes this past week.
It's just not a very good team. I mean, that's what it boils down to. You said you don't think Ole Miss is a top 10 team. I think Ole Miss is a pretty good team. Are they a top 10? I think this year they are.
Yeah, I think they lose Saturday, though.
Well, they may. They may lose to Auburn. I don't know. Then they're not a top 10 team once they do that. But this LSU team's just not very good. They're undermanned. They're down to 60-some-odd scholarship players. Max Johnson, he just doesn't have a ton of weapons to throw to without Boutte out there.
No, I still can't figure out if he's any good or not.
I feel like he's regressed a little bit from the end of last year, but some of that's got to be personnel around him.
I will tell you the way LSU's line is blocking right now, 5 sacks to Ole Miss. Will Anderson will set a record against LSU with Max's lack of mobility and
That's
the way
right.
LSU's blocking.
There's no way for them to offset that. Yeah. No, I would agree 100% with you. I think Will Anderson could have his career game against LSU.
For me, right now, my Final Four, if I had to pick, would be Georgia, Ohio State, Cincy, and I guess Oklahoma. I don't know.
No.
I still see a loss for them coming, but
Yeah,
I don't know who else I could.
Right now, you can't leave Alabama out, right?
No. But let me ask you this.
But I agree with John Talty that the way Alabama's playing right now, John Talty writes with AL.com, it's his column today, he says that Alabama's too inconsistent to beat Georgia right now. Now,
exactly.
It's not the 1st of December when they're going to play each other if Alabama gets there. So you got time to correct that. And I always think Nick Saban and his team is really a lot more tight. They tighten a lot of things up after this bye week.
We could lose the week before that if we're not real careful.
That would be the Auburn game you're talking about. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, don't disagree with that. I will say I think there's only 2 teams if you played a 7-game series that would beat Alabama. I think that is Georgia. I think Alabama in a 1-game set could beat Georgia right now, but I think in 7 based on what I'm seeing. And I think Ohio State, the way the offense has come on.